In a world filled with sharks, bears, and killer bees, one man is brave enough to stay indoors to bring you the latest in gaming, movie, and pop culture news. That man is Tom Awesome, and this is the Outside is Overrated podcast.
Hello and welcome to Outside is Overrated Game Club. Today we're diving into Star Wars Outlaws by Swedish developer Massive Entertainment. This is the first ever open world Star Wars game, so expectations were sky high. But does Outlaws live up to the hype? We're going to break it down for you. I'm your host, Tom Sidlachik, and joining me for the discussion tonight are the Professor, Mike Mathwig.
Evening.
Munch Time, John Munch.
6, 7.
I don't understand, but I love it. And the Hobby Box, Joe Burns.
Heyo.
I'm bringing a little bit of middle school stuff in. Right?
Oh.
You got to bring some in.
All right. Cool.
Some of your... That's for the SEO, right? Now it's going to hit because I'm using that slang. It's for you, new audience members.
Yeah. SEO loves audio form podcasts. I'm wearing a Spider-Man dad shirt for our discussion tonight. See? D-A-D.
Noise.
Yeah, had an event at the kids' school, had a walking taco, got rained on walking to the car. It was great, but we're not here to talk about our kids, John. We're here for Star Wars Outlaws. As you can tell, I'm fired up. Outside is Overrated is presented by Premier Health. Check out their website at premierhealthmn, as in Minnesota.com. That's premierhealthmn.com. In this monthly segment, we play a game with our OiO podcast community, and we invite all of our Patreon supporters to join in on the discussion. If you want to join in on the fun, support Outside is Overrated on Patreon at patreon.com/OiO. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. I'll start by setting some expectations. Here's what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about what type of game Star Wars Outlaws is, and then we're going to go through our initial thoughts on the mechanics, characters, and settings. This game was released in August 2024 and is sitting at a Metacritic score of 75. So what is Star Wars Outlaws? You play budding scoundrel Kay Vess as she Jar Jar Binkses her way into crime lord's crosshairs and tries to make a name for herself in a galaxy far, far away. Star Wars.
Is that actually from the marketing copy?
No.
Usually you take that from the marketing copy. That'd be funny if that was the case.
No, that was pure Tom, my friend. I was trying to think about, I always do the marketing copy, and as a marketer, I don't have much of an affinity for that. I'm I'm going to do my own thing, and I'm going to jam some Jar Jar right into everyone's faces to kick off the show. That's the Star Wars everyone loves, right? It's not Luke, Leia, Han. Mike, your face
That's
says
the sentence I wanted to hear tonight.
So Mike loves...
You should have done it in an accent, personally. I'm surprised. If you would have came out with Miso love the Outlaw Star Wars. I can't even do a Jar Jar, but you should have done it, Tom. It would have been great.
Love the Outlaws, you do.
That's Yoda.
Yeah, that's about all I got. So Star Wars Outlaws is a stealth-based adventure game that has you slinking across bases, doing nefarious jobs for different factions as you try to climb your way up their criminal ladders. So let's start by establishing our nerd cred. So what was your Star Wars Underworld awareness going in? Did you guys know about the Crimson Dawn, the Pikes, the Hutts, or did this all feel new to you? John, we'll start with you. Your level of experience with the Star Wars Underworld.
So I love me some Star Wars. I read all the real expanded universe before they made it non-canon, which makes me sad, right? And I was pretty much familiar with everyone, right? We know who the Hutts are, right? Good old Jabba and all his cronies down on Tatooine. The Pikes actually were in Book of Boba Fett, right? And it took me a minute to realize oh yeah, those were the bad guys that they Boba Fett and the Mandalorian, Din Djarin or whatever, fight. So I was oh, okay, they're bringing them in. And the Crimson Syndicate's the big bad from the Solo movie. So I was oh, okay, I kind of know all these people. They picked the right kind of crew to kind of bring into the game.
Yeah, well, John's established his nerd cred. I had very, very basic familiarity. Everyone knows the Hutts from, Jesus Christ, I'm blanking. What's that?
Everything Star Wars related from the start pretty much just had a Hutts somewhere.
Yeah, so everyone knew the Hutts. We're all on the same base there. But, like, other than that, I knew a little bit of the Crimson Dawn from the Solo movie, and that was it for me. Mike, what about you?
Well, I mean, the Crimson Dawn was big in the comics. If you've ever gotten into Star Wars comics, they did a lot of stuff with Crimson Dawn. And then the Pikes, I think, were actually introduced to the Clone Wars TV show before even Book of Boba Fett. So I was a little bit familiar with at least, what they were. And obviously the Hutts have been around for, since the beginning of Star Wars. So
Star Wars comics. I hadn't thought about that. Like, what era were you reading those in, Mike?
mostly for me, it was when the movies were out, because Marvel did comic versions of all the movies. And then they had their series that they started after the movies to continue the story, back when the Star Wars universe was a lot more loosey-goosey about what you could do with their universe, and they were just kind of free-forming. So you get Han Solo fighting, out in space with a 6-foot-tall rabbit guy, and it just, it was pretty bonkers for a while, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm vaguely familiar with a lot that's happened since. They've been through various license holders and, various eras of comics since then.
Sounds like a mess. How would you rank it against the Savage Sword of Conan, which you talked about on the Conan the Barbarian show? Like, if you could only read one
Savage
series
Sword
and the rest
more
gets
consistent, because it was in the same company with a lot of the same people working on it for many, many years. Where the Star Wars stuff varies wildly because it was different writers, different editors, different companies. So it was all over the place as far as I'm aware with Star Wars comics. Same with Star Trek comics, by the way.
Sounds awesome. Bernsey, what about you and your knowledge of the criminal underworld?
Yeah, I mean, like you'd said, you'd have to have been either never seen Star Wars or have been living under a rock to not know who the Hutts were. And I did remember the Crimson Dawn from being in Solo, a Star Wars story, everybody's favorite of the non-mainline Star Wars movies. And I remember reading, sort of tying back into the Hutts a little bit. I remember reading the Tales from books back in the day. I couldn't tell you anything about any of the stories at this point because it's been way too long. But I remember some of the underworld stuff being covered in that for sure. So,
all right. Well, you guys at least have some real nerd credit to your names. I'm thankful to have you all here for this discussion. Bernsey, this is a stealth-based games. Are stealth-based games fun?
Yes and no. It's
take a stand, one way or the other, Burns.
They can be. I feel like it's one of those things where there needs to be something else to the game as well in order to make it an entirely enjoyable experience. I think if a game ends up leaning too much into just stealth, and it doesn't have really well balanced and executed action sequences to sort of counteract that, it really starts to drag and lag. And so, yeah, they can be. It depends a lot on just sort of how well executed they are and what else is there to be able to enjoy, because all stealth all the time, I think, isn't as interesting.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. That sounds a lot like a no, Burns, but we'll come back to that. Mike, what were your thoughts about a stealth game set in the Star Wars universe?
I like a good stealth game, but it has to make sense for the character, for the story that you're telling, and the universe you're in. Dishonored, you're playing an assassin. Stealth makes sense. Assassin's Creed, you're playing an assassin. Stealth makes a lot of sense. Here you're playing a criminal, sure, but I don't know if stealth makes as much sense for a Star Wars character in a Star Wars game.
And just a brief moment of pushback there. I played both of those games as well, and I played with a high level of aggression. I enjoyed both of those games, but neither was a particularly stealthy experience for me.
Well, I think at their heart they're meant to be stealthy, but they're just good enough that they're not going to punish you necessarily for trying it the other way. That's just, those are good games by really good, teams that, give you flexibility. This game, I don't know if you guys know this, but when this game came out, it was much more aggressively a stealth game. Mm-hmm. And then they did a big update a while after it came out to basically soften the stealth quite a bit and make it easier to not be as stealthy if you didn't want to be, because people were pushing back so hard on how aggressive the stealth requirement was.
I think my understanding is a lot more if you got caught or if you got recognized while you were stealthing, was a lot more of it like when you're in Imperial areas and you get caught and you just get arrested and there isn't really a lot that you can do after a point. I'm thinking that that's what it was, and then they backed away from it quite a bit because it was just way too limiting. And at times you could be spending so long trying to stealth through a mission and have one little flub up and then have to go kind of back to the start, where there's still some aspects of that that's left in this game. I may or may not have just run into something like that right before we recorded. So, that's maybe a little bit raw at the moment, but yeah, so it's good that they did loosen that up, because I know that was something that a lot of people were not too pleased with about the game.
Yeah, this game would be untenable in that state. For example, I was going through an Imperial base on Toshar, and I was really struggling with this game early on because stealth games are not my cup of tea. I don't know if this is going to surprise you guys, but I'm not the most patient gamer on the history of planet Earth, and so I will try to stealth. I will sneak over here, I'll sneak over there. I always get caught, and then it's all right, well, let's just murder everyone. And so in this game, I kept getting noticed everywhere I went. I sucked at the stealth, and I'm in this Imperial base. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to murder everybody and see what happens. And I did. I killed every living soul in that base, and then I could just walk around. I'm like, okay, well, I don't like stealth, but I do like stealth knocking dudes out. So, that at least made it tenable, and then I got all the stuff, and it's all right, this game might work for me.
There's also the times where you run into that where it's I stealth through half the base, and then oops, somehow I alerted somebody, and now the alarm's going off, and here comes the deluge of enemies, and then I kill everybody, and everything's good, and then I realize, I don't have the upgrades to get 2 of these things yet, so I'm just gonna have to come back and do that again until once I get those other aspects to be able to unlock these things. It's just there's some things maybe that are Metroidvania that should stay in Metroidvania, and I think that's maybe one of them. Or at least I think the game at times does a pretty good job of flagging, hey, you need this in order to get to it, but sometimes it's not as apparent until you find it first, where it's well, then I wouldn't have spent, the last 25 minutes trying to sneak into this, smuggler's den to be able to try to find everything if I knew that 2 of the 4 crates, just weren't accessible to me at this point. So that is one thing that I wish that they maybe did a little bit better with, especially early on in the game when you don't have a lot of that stuff unlocked. But that's just something from the early parts of the game that I found a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
So stealth is great. Right, and I think everyone here is in the agreement that they look, stealth can be fun.
Hard pass.
Right, stealth can be fun. Right, look, stealth knocking people out, stealth shooting somebody in the face with a bow and arrow, always fun. Right, I think Mike, you brought up Dishonored, and that's what I was thinking about as well, of a game that does stealth right. And what I mean by doing it right is look, the board, the layouts, the maps are fantastic for it, right? You're actually exploring, right? Or I think of Sly Cooper, right? Here's an amazing game where look, it's you have to use stealth, but there's a great Sucker Punch is doing a great job getting me through where I need to go, what I need to do, and I feel like I am successfully sneaking around. The stealth in this is actually so weak and so poor. It is just literally let me just go send my pet right over here. And I'm walking next to the guy right behind him. And I'm is this really how easy it is? You just put the little pet guy who's cute right in front. Oh, he's dancing. What's that guy doing? And then I just walk over and I punch the guy out. And the guy 3 feet over there behind the console doesn't see me. So I'm okay, this is whose line is it anyways? Where the points don't, the rules are made up and the points don't matter, right? So it loses the fun part about stealth, which is a Ghost of Tsushima, where I'm gonna throw my smoke bomb over here, distract this guy, kill this guy, move the body around, do this, do that. You don't have any of that, and honestly, Kay Vest isn't stealthy. She's really not. When you think about what made stealth cool in those other 3 games I mentioned, they are like, stealth is tied into those characters. Sly Cooper is a raccoon who's a thief, right? It's tied into him. You can make it all about him, right? You got, in Ghost of Tsushima, you have samurais that are being all sneaky, right? All this sort of stuff. Ninjas doing stuff like that. And here's Kay Vess, and she's a slicer, right? She's got a really wicked hairpin lockpick that she can use to, like, you do the worst unlock game that has ever done all unlocks. That's just like connected through a bunch of dumb, stupid vents that make no sense and have no, like, here's my loading screen. Let me go to the next area, right? So, like, it's not a good stealth game, right? We'll get into fun things, but I do not like the stealth in this game.
That's funny that you hate the stealth in this game. I want to go back to Dishonored for a second. I did not enjoy Dishonored when I played it, but the one thing that I did like very much, I was terrible at stealth in that game, but in that game, there was like this phase ability where you could warp directly into someone's face and assassinate them, and that was like the saving grace of that game for me. You talked about Ghost of Tsushima as a stealth game, and like, my approach in Ghost of Tsushima is to go stand in the front of the base and like bang my sword with my shield and like do the last stand thing and slice up a bunch of dudes before they can act. So like, we have different stealth approaches, my friend.
Well, but see, both those examples you gave, right, is why those games are excellent, because the combat in both of them is fun either way you do it. So, like, if you mess up, like, I don't know how many times, like, look, every time in Dishonored 1, right, I'm going to do the stealth. And I would get, like, 80%, and then I would mess up, and then I'd be like, screw it, gun time, and, like, just kill everyone. And it was fun. Right, I almost did it. Don't care. Gonna go kill everybody. That's great. And this, like, oops, they caught me. Let me go ahead and just like kind of hide behind a barrel and put my gun up and go boom, 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 and like maybe I kill some guys. Like there's the combat just isn't there when I mess up to make me feel like a total like awesome like murder bot or whatever I want to be to kill everybody.
Sure, and like, I'll just take that back to you. Stealth games are not fun. Stealth as a mechanic is not fun. It's fun when the mission goes sideways and you start blasting everything and like you have to improvise to get through it. I do not believe that stealth is a fun mechanic generally in games.
I don't know. Not to maybe harp on this as much as we have already, but like games like Hitman, where there's a lot more flexibility as to how you approach things, and there's multiple ways to skin a cat. I think that's a lot of fun with figuring out how to approach those missions. Now, in an open world game like this, I don't think you can really approach things that way as much. Maybe you could have a couple of set piece moments that would be like that, or where you could get disguises or things. And maybe there's some of that later in the game too. I guess I have no idea. But there are stealth experiences that can be fun, but like I said, there just needs to be that balance, or there needs to be better mechanics. The tall grass I can understand. Like, that's a pretty big stealth game trope. It's just like, oh, I crouch in the tall grass. Nobody can ever see me, even if they're an inch away from me. Where it really loses me, and even though there was like a data pad to sort of explain it away, is when you're on one of the ships and you turn the steam on and you're standing in the steam and stormtroopers can just walk right by you. And it's like, this is where it gets a little bit ridiculous. So yeah, I think there's, it breaks a little bit of that immersion. And when we think about it, if you look at Star Wars movies, not a lot of those have like these grand stealth moments. They have these, oh crap, we suck at this, and now we got to shoot our way out of it. And I think if there was a little bit more to the combat, and maybe as you get more abilities, things will get a little bit better that way. Because, some of the abilities that you get in combat have helped make some of the shooting and gunplay and fighting a little bit more fun. But that doesn't help you get past the early parts of the game, which is, maybe a little bit of a slog at times.
Well, speaking of the early parts of the game, Canto Bight was one of the most divisive settings in the film The Last Jedi. Mike, were you surprised at all that it's the opening hub for Outlaws? Does it work better here than it did in the movie format?
I was surprised. I actually laughed when I realized that's where they were starting. I mean, it does work better here, but that's not saying much because it didn't work very well before. But I thought that was a cheeky decision to open in such an unpopular location. And I don't know if it was very wise because Star Wars fans as a group generally don't take that kind of thing well. If they don't like something, they will let you know, and they will, keep that dislike going for a very long time. So I was curious why they thought that was a good choice.
Well, is that like just Star Wars fans, or is that just like the toxic nerd culture that we live in? Like, if I hate something,
well, it
sucks
is,
and it
but
sucks
Star Wars
forever.
fans, I think, are the tip of the spear when it comes to toxic nerd culture, frankly.
I know.
No,
It's
I'm-
kind of like people who think stealth is stupid, right? They're just, don't really think about
Yeah.
it. They just shoot
Who likes
from the
those
hip.
guys?
Gosh, just idiots.
We were all saying that the stealth is super clunky and super weak, and how we'd all like more action in the game. So I stand by my assessment. If you're going to classify Horizon Zero Dawn as a stealth game, okay, that's a stealth game that I like. I like sneaking around with Aloy with an arrow. KVS is not Aloy, all right? So I don't think that my opinion is particularly wrong here. But John, what did you think of the opening sequence in Canto Bight? Is it Bite or Blight? I wrote down Bite, but I misspell things every day in the show notes.
I think it's Bite. Let me see. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Canto
Either
Bites,
way,
yeah.
Canto Bite. That's right. You're only there for such a short time. It took, and I did realize it eventually because I'm like, oh, you're here and the races are here, and the reason why I realized that's that same place from Last Jedi was because the races and the animals with the weird heads, right? And I'm like, after I realized, I'm like, oh, it's kind of a missed opportunity, right? You have this place where you really could have maybe delved in and done some different stuff. It would have been cool. Like, look, man, I want to do the heist. There's a casino here. Let's do a heist, right? Let's do something. Let's get it back. And you do one little small mission and nothing really happens. You break into that guy's place and it was just kind of generic. So, I don't know. Take it or leave it. It really didn't impact. Maybe I wish they would have actually leaned into it more and brought back things that were memorable from the movie that people didn't like, and maybe let me blow it up. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize that this was the same planet from The Last Jedi. The casino, when you sort of get to that one spot when you're getting ready to infiltrate the mansion or whatever, and you can see the casino, that looked familiar, but I was just like, maybe that's just the way they design casinos. But I didn't put two and two together that it was from The Last Jedi. And I didn't see any allusions to, force-wielding sweeping boys. So I guess that it didn't really trigger me the way that the movie did a little bit. So I think it didn't bother me at all about that. And I don't know. I thought the mission that you do on that planet was, I think it was fine. It was like a pretty standard, tutorial for this is how, to do the mechanics of this stealth game.
This is how you sneak through the vents, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep. This is where the tall grass is. And this is how you do a sneak attack, and hopefully nobody saw you. So that is the one thing that will happen from time to time. There will be times where you'll, punch the back of someone's head, and the person that's 2 feet in front of them doesn't hear. Then there's other times where someone across the room sees you and says, "Hey!" And then all of a sudden it's just red exclamation points. And you're like, "Well, I'm boned. Let's see if I can shoot my way out."
Let's run for some tall grass. So, would you guys have rather this took place in Coruscant? Because Coruscant is certainly familiar. The entire planet's a city, so there's got to be some criminal element there. So would that have? It's a safer choice, but would it have been a better choice?
I don't think so. I think it would have been a terrible choice because you're right under the yoke of the Empire, and sure, there's some dark corners, and some of that's explored in some of the more recent Star Wars shows, but I don't know. I think that would have been too difficult of a environment, and it's also one of those things where I think it being something that seemed, at least the part of Canto Bight where Kay grew up, being a little bit more, seeming more backwatery, I think made more sense than just building, 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 which would be what Coruscant would be no matter where you're at on that planet. So I don't know. I don't think that would have been a good option. I think the way that they started it, where they started it, was fine. And I think, like John said earlier, it's not like you're there that long. Like, you're there for a cup of coffee, and then you're on to, the next world. So
you heard it here first. Coruscant can suck it.
Mm-hmm.
Main protagonist Kay Vess is introduced as this hopeless, hapless, yet affable street rat. She takes a big swing to change her fortunes, accepts a risky job with unknown allies, and winds up betrayed. Bernsey, what are your early thoughts on Kay Vess as the protagonist?
Yeah, I mean, so far I've enjoyed her quite a bit. And it makes sense for a video game having somebody start out as a nobody, because then you're learning the mechanics and learning the world through them. And it is fun to see her interact with people. In these types of games, I always wish, even if it's just the illusion of choice, having more like dialogue options just help you to craft the story a little bit more and feel like that you're a little bit more interactive with what's going on. There's a couple of instances here or there where something like that pops up where you have to make a choice one way or another. But otherwise, it's pretty limited from that perspective. So, I always think back to like Witcher 3, and that's, a high bar to try to compare anything to. But, having options with dialogue and things that you can actually talk to people about, it just makes it a much more interesting experience in an open world game, and helps you to build more of a connection to the characters that are existing within there. So I don't know. That would be one thing that I wish you could see a little bit more of her through that. But otherwise, I don't know. I've enjoyed her so far.
Yeah, you like her, but you wish you had a little bit more agency with her. I should also mention we're all relatively early in the game, like 10-ish hours. We do the opening in Canto Bight. We've all been on the next planet. Mike, I think you might be a touch further than that, but there's going to be no spoilers in this entire episode. So we're going to give some initial thoughts on some of the characters and systems, but this is going to be a completely spoiler-free part 1 discussion of this. So, John, what are your early thoughts?
We're not going to talk about Darth Vader being Luke's father then, okay.
No!
Not this time. And now
It's
I got to beat that whole thing
impossible.
up. Thanks, Mike.
Great.
But John,
No, I mean, yeah, Kay Vess is okay, right? Like, I like her dialogue. She's kind of fun, right? Again, but I think her backstory and her overall character so far is pretty thin, right? I don't I'm not really invested in Kay Vess yet because there's no stakes in the game, right? It's just like, oh, I took the wrong job, so now I'm on the run, right? And then I took the wrong job, right? It's the first mission. I took the wrong job, and it goes south because I took the other wrong job, and that one went south. So I'm like, you're just really bad at your job. And like now I have to play this thief who's just really bad at her job, right? But I will say that once you land on the next planet, things branch out a little more, and I like her more and more, right? Because I do like her interactions. I do like how you're able to kind of start to form some relationships with the factions. So we'll see how that goes and see how the story expands. I'm hopeful, right? Again, it's still Star Wars. I'm still having fun. I'm just like, oh, they could have done like so much cooler things. Give me a little bit more solid backstory, right?
yeah, and hopefully we get there. Mike, what are your thoughts on Kay early on?
One thing, I really like her attitude because she's not a protagonist who's on a revenge tour, and she's not wildly driven with some horrible dark backstory. She's trying to make it big, and she's going to fake it till she makes it. And that is a kind of a nice way to approach this kind of game, because it means that she can go a lot of different directions. I don't know if they're going to go into those directions. We'll have to wait and see. But there's a lot of territory they could cover with her approach and her personality, as they go forward, as we get, further into things. So I think there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah,
Spoiler, she's a Palpatine too.
Oh no.
That would be a problem.
Well, maybe she'll just take the mantle of Skywalker. Like anyone can just do it. I'm a Skywalker too, yo.
Yeah.
I struggled with Kay so much early on. It's like everything was such a slow moving train wreck. And like you're on that initial job in the mansion, it's like, oh, the MacGuffin is booby trapped. Like, no way. Oh man. So like it just, I don't know. Early on, I was not very high in this game, but she's charismatic. I like the way she's building the relationships on Toshara, and like I see a lot of potential, but it sounds like none of us are truly enamored with the main character this early in the game. So let's talk more about her. Our plucky anti-hero escapes certain doom and escapes to Toshara, where she takes the first steps towards building a lucrative living as a lovable louse. The early game has you exploring the city of Miragana. Birds love that one. And the vast countryside of the moon of Toshara. Are you guys buying into the settings for Outlaws so far?
You know, I've really liked the city, right? And so, like, you know, when you kind of land, they really throw you in the mix. You're like, oh, this is kind of exciting and new, right? And you get the speeder, you can go around and they take you to the city right away. And I really like that first city. I think it actually works really well with, like, introducing the different factions, right? And, like, it actually, like, it makes sense in that context, right? When you're in that zone, it makes sense of like, oh yeah, this place over here is run by the Hutts, and this place is the territory of these people. And if I like have bad juju with these people, they know me because I'm always in this city. Like, this makes sense. And then you get to the outside world, and like it turns into Star Wars GTA, and like there's just like all of a sudden like you're just in the Hutt's territory, you're just in these people, and like you're just on a speeder bike, and I'm like, this is dumb. How do they know I am who I am? They shouldn't like automatically say that's Kay Vest. We know we don't like her, and it loses that cohesiveness, and there's no reason for me for like this to be this person's territory or the Imperials to own this area or that area, right? So and maybe Other Worlds, if we go to Other Worlds, is better. It's not like jiving. It's very much like, oh, here's the puzzle piece of bad guy here, bad guy here, bad guy here, right? These bad guys don't mind me, so I don't have to stealth there. All these other bad guys have got to be quiet and sneaky in the grass.
And I agree with you, John, and I'll add, like, once you get outside the city and you're cruising around, it's like suddenly all this open world stuff just starts hitting you. It's like, oh, there's pirates attacking over here, so I'll go over here and get shot in the face and die trying to grab a crate, not knowing what I'm doing. And it's like, oh, this settlement is under attack, and oh, these animals are attacking me, and oh, here's these pirates and these other speeders. And like, it's taken me a while to just enjoy being in the outer overworld.
I don't know. I guess I enjoyed that more. I do wish that the fast travel in the open world is a lot more sparse, which does, if you're... Because I think the one thing that I would say that's a knock on stealth games is that they take more time than action games, because... You know, you have to sit and wait around for people, figure out, like, the patterns that they're all walking, and then make your move, and then stop and watch, and blah, blah, blah. So that takes time. And then you have, you know, trying to navigate a massive open area to get from point A to point B, and that can take time. And there are some, like, you can fast travel to the main city, you can fast travel to... Jonta City, I believe is what it's called, which is the little smaller hub that you end up at for a while. But those are like all on like one section of the map, and you've got this whole swath of everything else that's like, you know, sometimes you can find, or you will be able to get fast travel points once you clear out, like, I think the treasure from an area, but that's not always the case either. And so it does make it a little bit more difficult to sort of do some of those things that are in the sort of farther reaches of the open world, which also wastes time. And so I wish that they either did something where, you know, because also when you're traveling, like, you kind of have to have your hands on the controller at all times. If they had something like Final Fantasy 15 where you could just have the speeder auto drive to a given location, as long as it's not like in the middle of a stronghold or something like that, I think that would be a nice balance to pass the time, at least to get there. If you're not going to allow me to fast travel more readily, unless there's something I just completely missed.
I don't think you missed it. Like, it's also a frustration for me, and it's a frustrating thing because, like, other games have done it. Elder Scrolls Oblivion came out roughly 20 years ago, and, like, there when you discovered a location, you'd always just, boop, fast travel right to it. And so, like, I just spent hundreds of hours just wandering across the map looking at all the runes, so, like, if I ever had to come back for a quest, I could just boop, 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 wherever I needed to go. So, like, it is a little wonky and frustrating in this game. Mike, did you love the overworld exploration or what?
It's not a great open world game. It's not a great open world game. You can just choose a direction, start walking, and you're probably going to find something interesting or fun or weird. You know, in this game, I'll go someplace because I have a mission to do, or I know there's a treasure out there. I do like tooling around on the speeders and just kind of, seeing how much I can bump into things out on the road or shoot people, but it's not the kind of overworld game where you want to explore necessarily, although there are some great vistas. I mean, you can climb up on top of a cliff and you get some really cool shots, and the photo mode you can get some really pretty epic looking shots out of if you want to. But yeah, it's at best what I would call a mid-level open world style.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned like the speeder bike, right? I will say this, like, they nailed the speeder bike, right? Like, to me, that thing is fun, and like the way that they actually are doing like the skills you get is also kind of a fun mechanic that ties into the bike real well, to where like, oh, the way you kind of get skills is maybe by finding stuff all around, but you basically get like, this guy is like a mentor to me. This person's a mentor, and I can get 4 or 5 skills from them by doing different skills, using different things, buying things, selling things. Just like, oh, talking to different vendors unlocks a skill. I'm like, that's really creative. It's causing me to do different stuff. And you meet someone who like fixes up your bike, and that was a lot of fun. So like, now my like speeder like has like a boost mode, so like I can do these big huge long jumps, and like that makes like when I'm being chased by Imperials or this or that really fun, because I'm like, I gotta ditch them, right? Because I'm wanted because I broke into their turret to steal some stuff and they caught me, and which is fun to break, because I was like basically hiding behind a door, and as they'd walk in looking for me, I would just shoot them in the head and then keep trying to like pick the lock, and like I'd hear another guy, so I'd go run over behind the door and they'd walk in and I'd shoot him in the head. But the speeder bike is so much fun and like feels like you're going super fast, crazy awesome. It makes driving around, and I feel like maybe they're going for like a Spider-Man vibe, where like, you don't need fast travel, you're swinging webs through the city, right? You don't need fast travel, you're finally on a speeder bike. And I'm like, no, I still need it.
But Spider-Man still had fast travel.
It did.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, and like, are you saying that riding the speeder bike in Star Wars Outlaws is as fun as swinging around as Peter Parker?
Not in the slightest.
Good, we're still friends. I'm glad. That makes me happy.
No, like the fast travel in the Spider-Man games was there, and you never used it because, like, I don't want to be Peter Parker riding a subway. I'm just gonna swing through the city. And I think they were going for that same thing, right? And there's like, you don't need fast travel as much. This is so super fun on the bike, and it is, but you still need fast travel.
Yeah, and like, traversing as Spider-Man, there are interesting things to do along the way. Like, I agree that some of the people that you meet and the quests that you do to like upgrade your bike and upgrade your skills, that's all great. Everything that is curated and made from like a narrative standpoint has been really good in this game so far. Everything outside of that, like just blasting around in the countryside, I've not found enjoyable.
So it's interesting looking at this, being the same team that made the Division and Division 2. It's you can kind of see some of that lineage, and you can also see how maybe how they struggled with trying to make an open world like this as interesting as they made like an urban open world work. Because, when you're walking through the city, you can have a lot more enemies just sort of wandering around to be able to shoot and stuff like that. And, I think there was always something kind of around each corner within the city when you're walking around in Division 2. But with this, you're just going to have large swaths of everything where there's like not a lot here until, someone in a speeder, flies by and they realize, oh, hey, my group hates you. And, then they ride up and they sit on the speeder for long enough for you to just shoot them in the head before they can get off. Which is nice, I guess, even though it seems like it's broken. And so, I don't know. I still enjoyed like cruising around, and like John had said, I did enjoy the speeder bike, and some of the upgrades that you get with that. Although I knew I shouldn't have like upgraded the like top speed as fast as I did, because it definitely was. I definitely wasn't good enough with the speeder before I upgraded that. So there was a lot of like trial and error as to how well can I take curves in this when I'm driving between these areas. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like something for me to look forward to. Next up, we're going to do a heat check. We're going to go rapid fire through several topics related to Star Wars Outlaws. And I just want us to give a real quick statement of whether you're hot on it, you're cold, somewhere in the middle. You can use whatever heat terminology you want. I want this to be kind of a snappy thing. So let's go in just a regular fixed order of how you're into my screen. Burns, John, then Mike, and give your heat check on each one of these things. Stealth mechanics in Star Wars Outlaws.
Lukewarm.
It's a tepid AC vent.
Tepid is right.
It's cold, man. It's cold. Stealth sucks. Criminal factions in totality.
Pretty hot.
Oh yeah, the heat's running in those vents. It's good.
Yeah, it's boiling. That's the best thing in the game.
Yeah, I agree. I'm hot on that too, and like I wait for some like moment like you get in Shadows of Mordor, where like you're playing against the factions and like a boss jumps in and you just have to take them down to increase your standing.
The only concern I have is because it feels like the story kind of forces you in a direction early on. And I'm just curious, like, how much is it going to yo-yo you around trying to curry favor between them? And is it just all going to end up where everybody's just neutral to you because you've, helped and then double-crossed and triple-crossed them enough that it's just like, maybe one of them will be in good and the rest will be in, like, the middle? I can't remember what it is before bad. That's the only thing I'm a little concerned with, and because I don't feel like this is the game where it's like, oh, I'm going for the Hut ending, where I'm like, maxed out on the Hut and at war, with the Pikes or whatever. I don't feel like the game's going to have variations like that, and so that's the only thing I'm a little concerned about, which is why I'd be a little bit less than, ultra hot.
Yeah, I think that fluidity will be interesting. So it'll be interesting when we come back in a month and dive in more detail. Anything, John or Mike, that you want to say on the criminal factions before I jump on to the next one? All right, Kay, Vess.
Yeah, I'd say hot.
She's okay.
Warming up as we further go, the more I like her.
Yeah, lukewarm. Space combat. There's space combat in this game. We haven't touched on it yet because it ties to a story mission. Burns, your heat check on space combat.
I've touched the stove and it's hot, but I think I'm figuring it out.
Meh. It's okay, right? There's not. It's kind of meh.
Yeah, it's functional, but it's not Rogue Squadron or anything.
I disagree. I think it's hot. Like, John, where's this falling short for you? Like, I thought it was really fun. Like, I like flying around. I like controlling my throttle up and down. I like that I have missiles.
It's just okay. Like, there's nothing fancy to it. Like, oh, here's the, like, it's giving me a reticle of, like, the ship controls well. It's kind of fun to fly the ship around, right? But, like, there's 5 guys around. I never feel like I'm in chance of dying, and it's just like move my ship around until I find the guy, push the one button to slow my ship down to track the guy, and then like move around, shoot him, blow him up, dead. Right? There's not much to it, right? And like there's no strategy. It's kind of like, no, this is not Wing Commander, sir.
There's no strategy because we're already Jedis. We're feeling the Force, dude. Like, how do they fall short?
We're not
for you?
Jedis. We're a scoundrel, and they better not make her a Jedi. That's not what this game should be. Now, a stealth
she's
Jedi
gonna be a
game,
Sith.
a stealth Jedi game would be pretty cool. They should have went.
No, stealth.
Stealthulous.
Yeah, now we're talking. Mike, did you want to share your thoughts on the space combat, or is it just meh for you?
Well, I don't know if this is good or bad, but honestly, the space combat in this feels exactly like the space combat in the Lego Star Wars trilogy. Exactly like it. So take that as you will.
So you're saying you like a more Armored Core approach where we could totally like trick out our ships with like in-depth custom. That would actually be really rad. That would be.
Yes. I would.
Just give us Star Wars Armored Core. That would be even better. All right, well, let's push this game in the trash, invent our own Star Wars Armored Core thing. Next heat check, exploration in general.
Fairly warm, quite warm.
Yeah, I'm warming up to it.
67 degrees. It's solid, but I haven't been blown away.
Yeah, lukewarm as well. Great dialogue. We're all perfectly like lockstep in this game. Waka.
I mean, I don't know. Middling? Like,
how do you hate our first buddy? He's part of our crew, Burns.
It's like, yeah, our first buddy, he says like 2 sentences to you, and then you're like out in the world for 5 hours, and then he calls you and says, hey, I'm ready to fix this if you got this. And then you go and you give him the thing, and then he's like, oh, okay, go away again. It's like you're so infrequently around him that it's like I don't have any level of investment with him one way or another. So it's just like I have more investment with the speeder chick than I have with Waka at this point.
The speeder chick who's hitting on you, by the way.
I thought we were hitting on the speeder chick. I thought that was
I wondered
flipped.
about that.
Because it felt like we hit on the speeder chick and she shut it down pretty quick. I'm like, oh, interesting.
No way. Like, when I came back for some other, like, supplies from her, like, she had some other things, she's like, and you can always stop by just to say hi, right? She was totally dropping hints for Cave Est. I was like, where did that come from, right? But there it was.
Just needs a friend.
All right. Well, your heat check on Waka. Who cares about the speeder chick? Because I didn't write down her name and I already forgot it.
Oh. I like Waka. Waka's great, right? I love how he's introduced, even though it's kind of like, why is he my friend now? Right? He was going to hit me with a pipe, and he's just like, I thought you were a bad guy. Like, okay. And he's like, but your ship's so cool. Let's be best friends. And I'm like, okay, cool. All right,
did we
Waka,
just become best friends?
We just became best friends, right? He's just like, he's the gearhead that just like loves my cool ship that I stole. So he's like, all right, you're awesome. I like him. And I like that, like, everyone else around is like, don't hang out with Waka. He's an idiot. Right? I'm like, oh, okay. The bad guys don't like him. I like Waka.
That was funny when you go into the crime boss and you make the mistake of telling him who you talk to, and he gets mad and basically throws you out. It's like, crap, who knew? But I'm clearly ahead of you guys on that front because things changed. On the Waka front, it's actually a really interesting development later on in a mission. So look forward to that.
All right. I'm like John. I'm red hot on Waka. He's great. Finding random data pads and how that ties into the gameplay.
Plot hole filler? I don't know where that is on the heat spectrum.
It's an ice cube tray. It's like kind of like, again, it's weak, it's cheap. Like, the cooler way they do this, right? Like, look, it's that thing where like, oh, here's some data, let me find this out. Like, lame. But they do oftentimes this thing where like you're walking around and you lean up against a bar and you're like listening to the person next to you, like, that's cool. That's how I should be finding info. Not from like the dude's data pad that's just there that tells me all like, oh, there's a speeder that broke down out. It's a really, really lazy way to like have there be side missions out in the real world. So, thumbs down.
I'm in the middle on that. I like getting information just in various ways. I mean, these aren't like audio files in BioShock where they're there to just, give you universe information. These are generally just to, clue you in on missions. And yeah, you can also eavesdrop. And I like having a lot of various ways to pick up side missions so you don't know that you're going to do it until it happens. So that's just another way. And it's a fine method as long as it's not the only method.
One thing I do like, since we're talking a little bit about the intel and stuff, I enjoy how like that starts off like John had said, like you're overhearing a conversation, and then as you're exploring more or as like things progress, like it'll tell you a general area when you get that first bit of information, and sure, maybe you find it and then you can complete it. But if you don't find it, you'll find like another hint somewhere that'll like narrow it down, and it's like, oh, okay, now I can see where that's at in the map. Or like when you're finding like the speeder gal or the slicer person, and it's like when you're going through, and at first it just starts off as intel to find that person, and then it's like, oh no, this is like a yellow mission now. This is something important to find out. And then, the face is scrambled on the training screen, and then that becomes defined once you actually meet the person. I thought the way that they handled that, even if it's just like UI types of things, I thought was really cool, and it just sort of it helped to show the progression that you have of, oh, okay, I found out more information, so now I know exactly where this is. And then sometimes you'll find other intel and it'll lead to the same place as one of the other things. It's like, oh, okay, I can kill two birds with one stone, going to do this. And so I do like how they did some of that stuff so far on like Toshara at least.
Yeah, I agree with you, Burns. That's done really well, but what it makes me wish for is The Witcher 3, where you could accidentally stumble into things, and you can stumble into a quest beyond like the entry point, because there's different like statuses and checkpoints. You could actually come in on a quest later than where it would initially start if you found the intel some other way. So I like what they did too. I just wish that they had done a little bit more with it. I'm also warm on random data pads. I think it's so silly. Like, I'm sneaking through a base, like, oh, well, I gotta stop and touch this thing. I'm not Joey or John. I don't have to read the whole thing. I'm like, all right, touch the thing, close the screen real quick, got new intel, booyah, check that out on the map later, and move on with my stealthing. The last thing on our heat check, the other characters within Star Wars Outlaw to date. Is it a good cast? Are there interesting characters populating this world for us to interact with, ally with, and unfriend?
Pretty warm.
I think this is one of the best things about the game so far. All the side characters I feel like have been fantastic. I like Waka. I like your first handler you meet. I forget her name, but because I never remember names. Like the big boss you meet on the first world, he was great. Like, I think that's like where Star Wars always shines, is like crazy, wild, goofy characters, and in these things, and I think they've done a great job with that.
Agreed. I'm hot on that too. I think I have high hopes that we'll see more of like the Crimson Dawn lady and the big bad, you first meet, back on the original planet, who's after you. And I think they've laid the groundwork for some good stuff with those characters. I don't know if they'll actually do anything with it, but I could definitely see it as being a possibility. So I hope they do.
Yeah, I'm hot too. Like, I think this is also where this game shines. Any other quick hitting topics that you guys want to talk into before I transition to like our final thoughts?
So just on that a little bit more, the one thing I especially like about it is that they're not all just humans, like in the frickin' shows. Like, there's all of these different species in Star Wars, and like it's finally they're like actually representing a bunch of the different characters as these different species, which is awesome. It's like, I don't know. That's why I keep saying I really want someone who makes a Star Wars game to have the balls to not make your main character human. Make them one of these other species so that you're just doing something different instead of always, why is the hero always a human? Like, that's not the case. That doesn't need to be the case. And then that would get us away from the whole, oh, this is a chick, she's ugly, why is this a woke game? You're making this chick. And it's just like, just make it a freaking Mon Calamari person. You just negate that whole conversation. Like, I don't know, have fun with it.
Yeah, but what about Dash Rendar, dude?
Dash Rendar was a piece of like white bread that you barely really understand anything about him, for crying out loud.
Eden Verso?
The only thing that was cool about Dash Rendar was his ship. That was the only thing that was recognizable about him.
Oh, well, you got Eden Verso, you've got white male or white female from Star Wars The Old Republic, like Knights of the Old Republic. Like, you're absolutely right, Birds. That's a great point. I'm glad that you brought it up. Like,
You got notable Ginger Cal Kestis. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Any other quick hitting topics, Mike? I think you had one.
Just, I wanted to touch real quick on the game. What was it? Is it Sabak? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, and I
Have
hate
you
it with
guys-
a burning fiery passion.
Oh, it's actually, if you dig into it a bit, it's actually pretty fun. I think it's one of the better designed in-game card games I've seen in a while. And it's actually, I did a mission for it, just figured I should see it. And actually, I came back and played it some more just because I kind of started to enjoy figuring out how the game works. So I will give some kudos to whoever designed the game.
You can actually get Sabak sets too if you want. You can get them in Star Wars and Disney World, right at the Star Wars Galaxy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
check out the
fun.
Sabak. It's kind of fun.
I played it. I played a couple hands. It's like, okay, I see what they're doing here. That's fun. It's kind of cool to see because that's like, it does play a big part in Star Wars lore. Like that's what Han Solo, how he won the Millennium Falcon was the hand of Sabak. So
Yep.
And it's better than spinning tops in Ayuden Chronicles Rising, so there's that.
The one thing I will say is I am glad that it's not Gwent. Like, I love Gwent, but I don't need something that becomes the main game for me as opposed to, like, it just becomes like an all-encompassing, like, 33% of your playthrough is just playing Gwent. So I'm glad that Sabak isn't that, like, in-depth. But no, I enjoyed it. I plan on playing more of it. It's like I played in Miragana, and then I played in the one that was in Jonta City or whatever, and I lost, and I was like, oh, okay, well, this guy was much better than than I was, so I just never went back to it. But I am planning on trying to play more of it. So yeah, but I think they did well with it.
I was going to skip it for the entire rest of the game, but based on your recommendation, Mike, I'm going to play it, and I swear to God, if I hate it, you're going to hear all about it on our Part 2 discussion.
Oh, we're going to hear all about it.
It's really not that hard to win for at least that first mission, so at least try that.
Yeah, we'll see. We've got another month with this game. Mike, what are you looking forward to with the rest of the Star Wars Outlaws journey?
I'm wanting to see how much, and if they try to link Kay's story into the greater Star Wars story that we're used to. I mean, there's been a million Star Wars games of every genre, including fighting games and dancing games. But still, when I think Star Wars, it's always about Jedi and Sith with lightsabers, and Alliance and Empire in starships, and Mandalorians and cool armor that are useless. That's Star Wars. And other than a little bit in that first mission, this has been completely separate from that. And I'm really curious how much they're going to go down that road completely separately, or if they're going to roll back into the kind of main Star Wars themes as we go forward.
At any point so far in the game, has there been an illusion as to where in the timeline this falls?
Well, only roughly, because Jabba the Hutt's still alive, so it has to be before Return of the Jedi.
I mean,
Okay.
the Empire is still
thing
together, so it's before New Hope, right?
What's that?
Empire is still together, so it's got to be like before the end of New Hope, doesn't it?
Well, no, the Empire is still together until the end of Jedi, so it's somewhere in the original trilogy timeline, I guess, but not sure where, how far into that. I don't know if this is before Star Wars or between Star Wars and Empire. I haven't been able to figure that out.
What I hope for,
And maybe they'll never really touch on it.
What I hope for more than anything else is that Luke Skywalker shows up in one of these missions and he just stands in front of Burns deflecting blaster bolts back at him like endlessly. It just vexes the crap out of him. Like that would be That's my Star Wars power fantasy. That's all I want from this entire IP.
Yep, one hand on his lightsaber deflecting the blaster bolts. The other hand, he's just chugging blue milk. That's exactly what he's doing. Yep.
Yeah, dude. Burnsy, what are you looking forward to with our last chunk of time with this game?
I'm looking forward to seeing like more of where like everything goes. Like what planets are we going to go to? What are those going to be like? I think that was one thing that was a lot of fun in Jedi Fallen Order, and so I'm really looking forward to see like what else it does with that. And by God, please can we be some Star Wars IP that doesn't have to go to the frickin' planet of Tatooine. Like, it's this stupid desert planet that, like, why does the entire universe revolve around this damn desert planet? It makes no sense to me. Like, leave it in the dust. It doesn't need to be anything.
Do you really think in a game where Jabba the Hutt's alive and we are working with or against the Hutt faction, we are not going to go do something in Jabba? Like,
I mean,
we better be at Jabba's
It's guaranteed.
palace.
We're going to see Jabba.
Yeah.
I'm 100% sure we'll see Jabba.
There's other Hutts, so, you know, you might not be working for Jabba. I could see us maybe going to Nar Shaddaa or something like that, which is like one of the main Hutt like home worlds. But like, we don't have to go to Tatooine. Like, come on.
It'd be Pizza the Hut.
Pizza the Hut. You stole my joke. Oh.
I'd put money on us going to Tatooine at some point. But Bernsey, would you rather go to new planets in the Star Wars universe, or are there planets like Kashyyyk that you'd like to go back to?
I'd rather go to not necessarily newer ones. It could be things that are referenced, but you just get to see different aspects of them, or planets that are mentioned a lot, but you don't actually ever go to them. Like, I think that would be cool. I would rather do that than, you know, go to something that we've seen in, you know, one of the various IP. So yeah, well, I would rather see that because it's much more interesting, and it gives like the developers the ability to create something that's their own instead of having to represent something that people are familiar with and have some sort of like huge tie to. So if you don't do it right, then it's just like, whoa, you didn't make this the way that it should be.
What if Alderaan's still around? Like, what if we get a job to like go kidnap a little girl? Like, that'd be great, right?
Yeah, I mean,
we'll go to Naboo and see some Gungan gangsters. I'm sure they'd be great.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, I'd probably drop off the game at that point.
I mean, Alderaan would be interesting. I mean, that was when I was running for like a few sessions of Star Wars RPG. The name for it that I had that I didn't really tell the group was, messing around in Alderaan places was what I wanted to call it. But the whole setup I had for it was that it was going to be that they were going to be on Alderaan, basically leading up to the point where the Death Star was approaching. And then they were going to have the ability they were going to basically find intel that the Death Star was approaching, and then they could basically decide if they were going to try to alert the rebels or if they're just going to GTFO on their own.
GTFO, dude.
Yeah, but they destroyed the space station and then had to leave the planet. And so then it was just like, oh, okay, well, time to find a new hub world. And then that's when it died because we couldn't schedule anything. So
nice. Oh, at least they got off the planet. John, what are you looking forward to in the next month?
You know, I hope some more story missions that have a bit more at stake, right? The first planet's been pretty dry so far. I mean, they've been okay, but like actually getting into like a bit more of a story. I also hope that like my plan is to go full on like with one faction and just go 100% Crimson Dawn. Like, all right, I'm just all in. And I hope that it doesn't blow up and like make it a bad game or anything, but that's just what I'm going to do. It's like, just pick one and go for it.
I think the other thing that I'm interested to see is, because a lot of the things with a lot of the other Star Wars games is you end up getting like a cast of characters that are like surrounding you and will go out on missions with you and so on and so forth. I'm curious if this is going to be like that, or if we're mostly just like a mostly solo smuggler with maybe one sidekick. Or something like that. I'm just guessing based off of the screen that it shows whenever I launch the game that we're going to get this droid that's big that's going to be our sidekick. That's just a hunch. I could be wrong. It could just be something that they're just like leading us astray completely. Like these other people that we're meeting, like, are they going to end up like actually coming along with us and helping us on missions, or is it all just to, side stuff for us to get from them and that's about it? I don't know. I'm just curious how the menagerie of friends and allies is going to build or not build as Kay is going through her journey. Curious to see where that goes.
What I'm looking forward to is seeing what kind of emergent storytelling we have over our next month with the game. Like, John's going full on Crimson Dawn. Honestly, I didn't have a plan for what I'm going to do with the factions. I'm going to tom around, and the chips are going to fall where the chips are going to fall. And, like, I'm going to be interested to see how my playthrough compares to John's, compares to Joey's, compares to Mike's, and, like, just how different this experience might be given my lack of appetite for stealth games versus you guys' maybe more serious approach to the game. So I think that'll be fun to see how our experiences vary. Anything else you guys want to get off your chest about Outlaws?
Star Wars
I'm curious, have you guys noticed, I feel like sometimes they're oddly ambitious with things they don't need to be. Just as an example, did you ever stop and get food at one of the food stalls in the city, and then it turns into a whole ass mini game that you have to go through to get the food to?
Yes.
I was like, what is this?
It was so bad. Like,
Why would you stop and get food at like a vendor if it wasn't like a quest thing to do?
Well, and then it like gives your little guy like a perk, right? So then like you
right, I mean,
actually
there's a
also
reward for it, so I'm glad I did it, but
reward.
I didn't expect it to be such a complicated little. You actually have to do all these on screen. It felt like playing Heavy Rain or something. I mean,
Yes.
I was really surprised.
The game was very bad. It was well done and like cute and like, oh, this is like a nice moment between these two, right? But like definitely was not a good mini game.
I mean, at
But
first,
it feels like. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, at first, I felt that it was like, oh, this is just like Monster Hunter, and so this is just like when you sit down at Monster Hunter and then you get the whole big like animation as they're making the stuff and then flop it in front of you. Like, I was like, oh, okay, it's just like that. They played a little bit of Monster Hunter and really liked that, so they decided to throw that in the game, and it's like, oh no, it keeps going, and now I gotta like motion things into my mouth precisely and help
you guys are making this up right now, right?
Motion things into its mouth.
I did you not?
There's like a whole it was like 15 minutes too, because it's like, here's the food, and I'm gonna go ahead and like, ooh, the corn's not hot, so let's blow on I gotta blow in the fire to like heat the fire up to make the corn pop, and then that makes the corn pop, and it pops into your little rodent guy's mouth, but you have to move the rodent guy to catch the corn. Yeah,
is that one of the ways to make Nick's happy to get that ability?
Hit one button. I mean, and they must have spent a lot of time and effort on this. I mean, it wasn't something they did in 10 minutes of programming. So it felt like a very strangely ambitious choice for something that was pretty unimportant. And I'm curious if they're going to have more of things like that. It makes you wonder about their priorities as far as their time and money. It just feels like that's not something you need to be spending it on.
It feels like they're just trolling you guys, and like specifically John and Joey with your need to like see everything and touch everything. They're like, there's people out there that are gonna listen to every line of dialogue these dudes say. Let's get them with the food minigame where they have to like pop the corn themselves and position their little rodent to catch it. Like, that'll learn them.
Well, it was more so just, I thought it was just somewhere to lean on to like hear like another piece of intel was what I thought it was, and it's like, oh no, they're gonna sit down and eat. And then it just kept going and going and going and going.
At least they give you a reward that actually is tangible for, long-term benefits. So at least it wasn't completely just a, surprise, here's what you're going to be doing for a little bit. But
do you keep the perk forever?
I don't know.
Or is it
that was weird.
Do you keep that reward and perk forever? Like, how long does it last?
You can get different meals and equip them. Right?
Yeah.
So you actually like equip the bowl. Like you go into like your spaceship and there's like a zone and you say, oh, use this bowl. So it's kind of like his food bowl that you fill, right? Like, oh, he's got that perk. So you get different perks for Nix, and that's how you do it apparently.
Do you guys ever think that like we're wasting our lives with video games? Like, was our parents' generation just right? Like, are we just rotting our brains here? What's wrong with us?
No, we're fine. Trust me. Like our little Star Wars pet, we're feeding it. It's okay. Like, it's just an evolution of Tamagotchis, so it's just, that's fine.
As some of my friends would always say that their dad would always say is, why would you want to live so much of your life in a Japanese man's head?
I do think, though, like, Mike, you bring up something that I was thinking about, and, like, this is an open world game, right? And I think that's like, it's peak open world, right? And I think the way that those games are designed, this shows where, like, some things can shine and some things are just weird and strange, because this was like one little team's, like, you know, side project that they worked on. Like, oh, we're gonna do this, like, fun, like, for whatever reason, like, it made it past all of, like, the testing. Like, we got our game in, we got our food thing in, they let us do it. Let's make it awesome, right? So and, like, it stands out and it makes the game unique. I like it. Like, it's weird. True. It does make it unique, right? But it's well done, and it's just, like, as far as, like, the visual, so, and we're talking about it, right? But it is, like, I think that's part of, like, why this is a 75 on Metacritic, and why, like, I've come at it and been kind of like, stupid vents and this and that, and have been probably sounding negative on it, but I'm still having fun playing it because I'm still in Star Wars world, and, like, there's still, like, fun things that are sprinkled throughout. Right? It's just the difference between, like, you know, the most amazing open world games that we've mentioned, like The Witcher and this and that, and then something like this, where it's like, oh, it's just not as fleshed out where it needs to be, right? And some things are a little more rough around the edges.
Well, and yeah, and especially for me, where it's like, you know, after watching the original trilogy and everything like that, it's just like, you know, I always thought that it would be so fun to be a smuggler in Star Wars, and it's just like, now I get the opportunity to try to see what that reality would be like, which I think is really awesome. So that's why I'm excited. I was excited coming in, and why I'm interested in seeing where this is going to go, and you know, how the journey changes as you know, Kay supposedly gets better at smuggling, and, you know, gets more cred behind her, and gets, you know, roped into crazier and crazier things within the universe. I don't know. I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, me too. And you guys have given me a couple things to truly dread diving into with the food minigame and Sabacc. So thanks for that. That's where we're going to leave our discussion on Star Wars Outlaws for now. But next month, we'll find out, does Outlaws deliver on its scoundrel fantasy, or does it get lost in hyperspace? On the main show, we just posted our Blade Runner episode, and next month we have more Star Wars content as Joey, Adam, and I break down the board game Star Wars Imperial Assault. I hope you'll jump in and play Outlaws with us for next month. Please support Outside is Overrated at patreon.com/OiO. And until next month, stay inside, kids.